Namaste, India. Good morning, USA. Good noon, Dubai. Good evening, Sri Lanka. And great good evening, Australia. I, Shefali, representing Women with Wings, welcome you all to this special evening of the day. Some of you may ask, why is this special? So, there are two reasons behind it. One is we are talking about women leadership, which is being talked about everywhere. And it is our first ever international roundtable conference. We rightly say your vibe attracts your tribe. Women with Wings is a tribe of women with a positive and magical vibe which is infectious. The strong and powerful women of the tribe are not only setting the benchmarks of excellence each day, but also sowing the seed of hope in those eyes who seem to have lost their dream. No dream is big or small. To envision and every dream is achievable, but it is imperative to muster the courage to start. So it's all about Women with Wings. Let me quickly introduce to you the moderator of the day, and she is none other than our only Shikha Verma, who happens to be our advisory board member, happiness and well-being coach, OD and L&D consultant, a speaker, a moderator, an influencer, and most importantly, a generous human being. Welcome, Shikha, to the show, and thank you for honoring us and taking the charge of being the moderator of today's wonderful session. The stage is all yours, and we all are waiting for you.
Hello, thank you so much. Ayubowan, good day, mate, to Australia. Assalamu alaikum, Dubai, and a big namaste to one and all. Thank you to Women with Wings for organizing this fantastic discussion today and giving me the privilege and honor to be the host and moderator for this wonderful discussion on such a relevant topic. I thank each and every single one of you for tuning in and taking out time for this discussion. Women have come a long way, really, from being in a cage to building confidence, having the courage to go all out to break the glass ceiling, and turning into something more concrete as capital. So, back in 1928, women were only seen as jewels, something to kind of show off to others. And then there was a phase where we started to step out and take on more roles for ourselves. I still remember at that time the kind of work that we would still do would be associated to the feminine image. So we'd perhaps be selling saris or selling detergent powders. And that reminds me of this wonderful, hilarious sequence of Deepthi Naval where she's selling chamko sabun, कपड़ों के लिए बेहतरीन बार बार लगातार चमको झाग वाला चमको. Remember that? So from those eras to we've come, all the way where we participated in the workforce, and look at where we are today, where women are shining at global leadership levels across the world, making effective, inclusive COVID-19 responses and making decisions at top management, senior most levels, right till the grassroots frontline service level too. And just like UN Women says, we need to build back better. The three Bs that are very, very critical for us to focus on. And hence, this discussion, where we're going to talk to our illustrious panel of speakers coming from diverse walks of life. This is our very first international roundtable conference, and our speakers come from such rich experiences. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome each and every single one of you here. So we have an executive coach and leadership facilitator with 15 years of experience, Dia Mitra, who strongly believes that all of us have hidden talents and potential. We also have amongst us a corporate executive with notable experience of 10 years in business management, Famida Mohammed. Her philosophy is steering business evolution and enterprise growth through proficient corporate leadership. Then we also have amongst us a biologist, Preeti Samuel, Doctor of Philosophy. She strongly believes that we need to voice our passions and stand up to what's right. And not to forget, Prachi Mendiratha, who's a HR practitioner with 17 rich years of experience developing high-performance workforce and creating people excellence. According to her, inclusiveness is not a choice, especially if businesses want to succeed. It's such a privilege to have all of you on this panel today. Thank you for joining in. And I'll request you now to take a minute or two to talk a little more about you so that all our viewers today know all of you well. So over to you. Maybe we can start with Fahmida, Prachi, Preeti, and Dia.
A very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to the audience and the lovely ladies that I have connected with. It's an absolute privilege. Thank you, Shefali ma'am, and thank you, Shika, for that beautiful one-liner about me. Well, to begin with, my proud status always is that I am a mother of two beautiful children who actually give me the drive, the motivational purpose to move on and to lead by example. And to that, I understand as a corporate professional with over a decade's experience that leadership can either break or make a man. It is through both the good and bad experiences that I have confronted that I have understood the need for effective and efficient leadership. So not only did I started learning from my own mistakes, but I took every day as a learning curve. That's how I stand here. Apart from my day job, my corporate professional job as a group head of sales and marketing of Comfort Water International, my passion stands in motivational speaking, hosting, and moderating. And I have been affiliated with many local, Indian, and global institutes and have been a part of several transformative webinars, seminars, and also talk shows. And once again, thanking you, and I look forward to a Thunderbolt session. Thank you.
Totally. Yes, Prachi?
Thanks, Fahmida, for that brilliant introduction. I'm absolutely honored to be here, Shikha and Shefali. Hello, everyone. Definitely, I am almost closer to the midnight. So this across the world global session of across various time zones is so electrifying. I'm so thrilled to be here with all of you. A little bit about me. I'm an MBA HR and I'm schoolmate of Shefali. So we used to be just hanging around all our school life for years. But we've come a long way from there. And I see all of you today here. I've done my MBA and I am head of people and culture for Cambridge Assessment Organization. Been working for more than 20 years into HR. I consider myself somebody who's very passionate about supporting women and leadership. It's all about people and it's all about culture. If the right culture is given, anybody can be anyone that they want to be. So a deep-rooted belief and passion for genuine development of human resources in every possible way. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, and I'm a sister. So all that does take a part of it, but it's the people which actually connect me. So thank you for letting me come on this platform and sharing my thoughts around leadership and women empowerment. Look forward to speaking to each of you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Pleasure to have both of you on board. Preeti.
Oh, well, I'm Preeti and I'm a biomedical scientist. I've done my PhD in applied biosciences from the University of Arkansas, and I've done my fellowship in renal physiology from University of Houston. Currently, I'm based in Houston for the past 12 years, and I'm an entrepreneur and a co-founder in my own company, which I started with my husband. And actually, both of us started together. So I'm a lead scientist and a co-founder in my own company. And in addition to that, I have been very passionate and part of a lot of activism and advocacy for scientific learning, understanding, and application in our lives, which I have taken to kids as young as 3 to anybody basically I meet anywhere, that, you really need to understand science, how it is part of our life. And that is my advocacy. And part of what we do in our company is an extension of that. We are in a field of cancer biology, and we make organoids for 3-dimensional model systems for rare cancers. And in addition, very important, I'm a daughter.
I'm feeling illiterate already, Preeti.
Don't. This is all like. So I've been a daughter for 55 years. So, and the role of being a daughter has been very realistic and very stark, especially in the past 1 year, where I think I've spent more time worrying about my parents than my kids. I have 3 kids, a 17-year-old and a 10-year-old and a 10-year-old. And this week, my husband and I, we celebrated our 19th wedding anniversary. I married my senior from college, actually grad school, and we've been married for 19 years and going strong. And yeah, so that's it about me for now.
Thank you, Preeti. It's a pleasure to have you. Yes, please, Dia.
So thank you, Shefali, and thank you, Shikha, for creating this wonderful platform. And thank you to all the speakers. You all have such illustrious, diverse backgrounds. I'm really looking forward to this very generative discussion, and thank you for having me here. So my role is that of an executive coach and a leadership facilitator, and I help individuals as well as teams realize their full potential. In terms of my education background, I actually started studying economics, so the study of managing wealth. And then from there, I transitioned to human psychology, where I completed my master's in HR from TISS Mumbai. And after having a corporate career of about 14 years was when I started as an entrepreneur. And today I work with both individuals as well as organizations across India, Middle East, as well as Australia. In terms of my personal life, I've been married for over 16 years, and I have a 9-year-old who keeps me on my toes and shows me the mirror very, very often. And I am also a daughter, a mother, a wife, a friend, and I revel in all the roles that I play. Leadership is something that I am extremely passionate about because I believe leaders cast long shadows. And whatever a leader does gets amplified in the form of the culture. And I think Peter Drucker very rightly said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So that's why leadership is extremely close to my heart. And, that's my, zone of comfort. And that's the area that I specialize in. So won't take any more of your time. I'm sure we have lots to discuss today. So I hand it back to Shikha again.
Thank you. Thank you. It was such a wonderful round of introduction by all our panelists. It's brilliant to have such diverse, experience on one platform. And I'm sure all of us are looking forward to have this exciting and interesting, insightful discussion together. So I'll jump right in, and I would like to ask Prachi, why really do we talk about this right now? Why is it so important to talk about women leadership and empowerment, given the current scenario? So what are your thoughts? Prachi, you're on mute.
I think that has been one of the most used sentence of 2020 and COVID, right? That's a good start. You're on mute. Thanks for reminding me on that. Very important question around women empowerment and leadership, and I'm quite intrigued by what choice of topic that you have brought in today. But before I divulge into it, I do want to say, around the world, many have lost friends, family, loved ones to this pandemic. And it is heartbreaking to see who have, and my, regards, and I wish them all the strength to come out of this difficult time period. What we have seen in case of a pandemic is a health crisis. Usually a health crisis leads to a social crisis, and a social crisis leads to an economic crisis, and which in turn leads to a leadership crisis. And when we are looking in today's world, if you connect all the dots, we are in a position where there is a leadership crisis. So if you do not focus on the women, which do bring much bigger perspective to leadership, in my view, and my strong opinion, then you would continue to have a political leadership crisis, corporate leadership crisis. So, women and today's leadership platform have a much to contribute around leadership. If you're looking at the gender pay gap, that's a global issue that we are dealing with. If you're talking of getting women to the leadership levels and getting them a seat on that table, that will help us go to a better world and a better corporates and a better organization, which will resolve the much financial issues, financial outcomes, which we possibly many organizations have missed. And look at leadership of Jacinta Ardern, Prime Minister of New Zealand. She has come out as one of most successful leader in times of pandemic. On a global
True
level,
that, yeah.
if you look at those strong women leaders, they are blazing the path and breaking the glass ceiling that we have been all talking about it. And if you do not bring women with you on that journey, men support men. If as a woman you do not support as a woman coming into leadership position, then you would not be able to lead the path of women empowerment. I have been into corporate life for so many years, and to get that seat on the table to make sure that I have my voice heard in the decision making, you had to go to the board level and fight for little things which talk about culture and which talk about people. And there is no leadership if you do not have followers, if you do not have people. So these conversations are the core of it. And these are the platforms like Women with Wings provide all of us to talk about such important but very necessary topics. That's my view on this.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. And I can so resonate with that. We are facing some amount of crisis, and women have immense potential to contribute at the end of the day. We're 48% of the population, if I talk about it, an untapped potential, really, like Dia's philosophy is. And if we start contributing, the economy is going to jumpstart. And a lot of the crises that you were referring to can be taken, good care of. The complications or the challenges have definitely intensified during this pandemic. Like you said, there are too many struggles that women are, dealing with lesser support and more responsibilities. I think the pressure is only mounting up day in and day out. Despite the vaccine coming out and all of that, I think the burden on in a woman's life is pretty much intensified even today. With more responsibilities, more pressure, children's education to look into, so on and so forth. So that makes me wonder. We do see an impact. Women are retreating, and 1 in every 4 women is deciding to kind of downshift their careers now. That's pretty sad. And I'd like to ask Dia if you can add to this. What do you think is the reason? You see a disproportionate effect on women and their economic status today. So what are your thoughts on that, and what can be done around that?
Yes, thank you, Shikha. And, it's quite an irony because we've always thought that flexible working is going to impact women positively. Yet the trend that we are seeing is quite the reverse, with women actually, 1.8 times having more unemployment than men because of the pandemic. And unlike other modern day recessions which we've gone through, this one is being called a she-cession because women are impacted more than men. And part of the reason is if you look at the sectors which have really suffered, there are sectors like hospitality, like retail, personal care, education, and all these sectors tend to employ more women than men. So part of it is the macro scenario. And as you rightly mentioned, 1 in every 4 women today, as per the Lean and McKinsey survey, are planning to downgrade or planning to get out of the workforce. Now, this can really dwindle all the work that has been done in gender parity for the last few decades. And there are three reasons why I believe that the pandemic has disproportionately affected women. The first one is quite commonsensical, which is the blurring of the work life boundaries. And now, as more and more people are working from home, we see women having to take a lead when it comes to domestic responsibilities, especially with young children, schooling from home, caring responsibilities. And as a result, you'll see actually men kind of expanding their work sphere, whereas women expanding their domestic responsibility sphere, even though both are working from home. And I really acknowledge the fact that compared to probably the previous decade, today men in general are contributing more in terms of childcare, in terms of domestic responsibilities. But still, the primary responsibility lies with women, and it is often out of their own volition, out of their own choice, that they want to take on this role. The second thing which is interesting to note is access to networks. Now, we all know as women that access to networks in the form of coaching, mentoring, informal feedback, this is really important for women to progress. And now, because a large part of our work is virtual, this doesn't happen on Zoom calls or on Microsoft Team meetings. So women have no longer that access to network which was in their workplace, which they were wanting to step out and take advantage of. Now, a lot of companies, be it a Unilever, a Cisco, and eBay, what they are doing is they're trying to be compassionate and not allocate work to people, but they have these projects and they are telling people, you look at your workload and you tell me if you're comfortable, do you want to volunteer for this? And what we have observed is that more and more men are nominating themselves as you compare it to the number of women, because they are already enmeshed in a stressful situation with work, domestic, their own anxiety and stress. And in fact, Google actually found in their research that lesser number of women engineers were nominating themselves for promotions. So access to networks is the second important thing. And the third and last one, which is interesting, as number of places in the world have started opening up and people are going back to work, is that companies now are giving people an option. You can either come back to work or you can work from home. And guess what? We see more and more men opting to work from office, and you see women still wanting to work from home, because a lot of the kids are still schooling from home because they have care responsibilities. Now, unless a company starts really valuing output and not presenteeism, the opportunities are further going to dwindle for women, because they will not be there for that quick catch up. Hey, why don't you take on this? They will only be relying on those official communication channels, and myriad conversations that actually shape decisions are going to be in the workplace, where we see more men than women. So that's why I would say that women are more disproportionately affected than men.
That's well said, Dia, and I can so resonate with every single point that you've highlighted. I think we're still not ready for remote working, so to say, in terms of ecosystem as well. And by all means, attitude of the generation who manages and leads organizations, they're still kind of stuck up in that mindset of having people present in the organizations and kind of be visible in front of them, for want of more control, maybe, for want of more vigilance and showing their power plays and stuff like that. So a lot of other things and attributes also have contribution or influences in that space for sure. At the same time, I feel this is a situation where it needs to be looked at from a economic opportunity, so to say. There's a research which very clearly says our global GDP stands to lose $1 trillion if we don't arrest the situation today, by 2030, as opposed to if we were to treat men and women at par and kind of arrest the situation and look after the economic status of women as well. That's the potential we hold. We can contribute to up to $1 trillion to global GDP. It makes absolute economic sense to talk about women empowerment and leadership in this current scenario, don't you think? Also, during this phase, to my assessment, we've seen an influx of immense amount of technology, a lot of consumption online. We've, by no choice, we've kind of had to adopt ourselves, and we've started working on this new virtual platform, so to say. At the same time, we have limitations of some women who are not ready to embrace work from home, and some who really are all gung-ho about reporting to office. So we have a huge mix of limitations, challenges that women are still dealing with. Fahmida, I'd like to check with you. What is your thought on the limitations and problems that we are trying to deal with, and what are some of your suggestions on how we can cope to get to the leadership roles that we really aim to be at?
A very valid question, Shikha. Actually, as Dia correctly pointed out, women are exceedingly warranted within domestic space. So herewith, the gender termed women, female, feminine itself entails restrictions derived from the time-honored and customary belief that the purpose of a woman is to be a caretaker and venerator, which cannot be substituted by any other. If a woman goes to work, which means the work or errands at home are completely hindered, and during which period, if a child goes astray, it is the sole responsibility of the woman. Now, what happened to the father figure here? Having stated that, despite the myth has been debunked through collaborative efforts, it is actually disappointing to say that this particular route has actually provoked fear and threat to the opposite gender, rather than perceiving it as an opportunity that women are ready to go and support the family just beyond the domestic work in the mainstream, to embrace the need and harness the true potential of a worthy female candidate who can actually make a positive difference, contributing to the socio-economical aspects within the mainstream once again. Now, let's take effective leadership roles here. How can effective leadership have direct correlation to the fact of gender? Well, it is true that males have been performing quite well at the top and managed to sustain it for such a long time. Congratulations, job well done. But the globe and management theories themselves unconsciously, now let's say, okay, I'm willing to give them the benefit of doubt, consciously have come in with transformative values into leadership roles, thus promoting the well-being of the entire ecosystem. Recruiters and people managers have clearly understood the need for women roles for the sustainable success of an organization. Now, the guarantee of employee dedication, commitment has to be stable and steady throughout. Stakeholders have to be valued and respected instead of controlled through authority. So if leadership is all about effective communication, leading by example, being optimistic and open-minded, and demonstrating utmost integrity, I think women have set the benchmark for them all. Women are leaders in their own terms, and they have proven to be leaders. They have made up a whole unit of diverse individuals. Now, once again, if you look at, if true leadership is the definite advocacy that leaders create leaders, leaders empower leaders, and leaders pave the way for collaborative work to keep them together. Now, I think I need to raise my voice out loud and confirm that, as many of my co-panelists stated, we as mothers, sisters, and daughters have demonstrated that we are not just creators of life, we are the prime movers of unity. We are the architects of human values at home, the engineers of the life journey of our kids, and the instigators of love, compassion, and everlasting bond. Now, which of these sounds less like a leader? I think it's time that roles have to be defined on the level of impact and influence that it has on the overall success of the organization and every stakeholder involved. And leadership, whatever role it can be, on whatever level of the organization, has to be perceived just as a leader. No more male leaders, female leaders, not at all. Because I reinstate, gender has no direct correlation to leadership. It is how well you can create a difference. Now it is time for us. Now, putting the entire burden on them, women out there, beyond the doubt and fear they have been caged within, we have to start believing in ourselves that we have led many generations. And now it is our time to extend the blessings bestowed on us to the world who truly deserves a difference. So what's stopping us? None. It's us who is stopping ourselves. That would be my thoughts on it.
Bingo, Fahmida, I can't agree more. Such fantastically illustrated. We are the architects of humanity. We are not just the creators, we're also leading from the front in terms of engineering our own our own children who are studying at home. And the contribution goes beyond leaps and bounds. And there's no comparison or a question per se, whether we have leadership skills and whether we can be all there or not. We've been doing it day in and day out. It's a part of our routine. It reflects in every single role that we are performing today, be it a mother, be it a sibling, be it a daughter, be it a professional, and be it a citizen for that matter. And that reminds me of what Ayn Rand said. She says the question isn't who's going to let me, the question is who's going to stop me. It is us and only us who can stop us if at all we're creating those boundaries for ourselves. And I so tempted to share a short story, and I'm sure our viewers will love this one. It's about a tadpole story, okay? A father who saw his daughter carry a packet of tadpoles wondered as to what she's going to do with that. And the daughter's grown up and she wanted to buy the tadpoles because she wanted her child to witness the tadpoles grow into frogs. And intrigued, this father kind of walked into their house and observed these tadpoles in the aquarium, where there was a huge rock kept right at the center of the aquarium. So he happened to ask his daughter, why you've done that? And she says, I was instructed to do this by the pet store. And they said, if you don't do that, your daughter doesn't get to see the frog. Because that rock really allows this weakly creature to kind of push himself and breaks the tail into two legs and helps it to develop the strength that's required for it to hop. And that's such a wonderful aspect, about our lives and the way we need to see all the obstacles in our life today. At the end of the day, these are the obstacles that are actually helping you to develop skills and to push yourself to kind of attain something better. And they cannot learn to hop, he said, by just swimming around. To hop, they must face resistance to start with. That's what gives them that incentive to leap forward. So this is our time to leap forward by all assessment. Like Fahmida said, only we can be our own limitation. So that brings me back to our another question from Preeti. What measures really can we take to mitigate this kind of impact of the pandemic on women? Because now we know for sure we have lesser women workforce. So what is it that's required to kind of support women and kind of get them back into mainstream? Preeti, over to you.
Okay, so there's nothing I feel I can add to whatever has been said by Prachi, Dia, and Fahmida. They brought out excellent points, and they also obviously are doing this in real life to make it a more practical suggestion than just words. And that's amazing. What I would like to say is I would like to share my personal experience. And the reason I'm doing it is because I don't deal with large groups of people as of now. Mm-hmm. But there are things about the pandemic that has brought forth a lot of things. Which kind of ties in with my own personal life. So what the past 1 year, and we are living in an extended 1 year pandemic effect, whether it is coming back into normal life or not, regardless of which part of the world you're living in, the effect is far more severe or far more acute. So I'm a mother of 2 special needs kids. And this was a curveball thrown at me very unexpectedly. This is my second set of kids, and they are twin boys who are on autism spectrum, and they have severe autism, so they require a lot of attention. And I was doing my fellowship when I was pregnant with them, and I thought I could be a superwoman at that point, and drudged through the whole thing of 12 hours of lab work, come back, and remember, I'm pregnant with twins at that time. I did that through the pregnancy. I had my kids. Up until 1 year, I was the person who always felt I could not say no or seek help, because I did not want to be pointed out like, oh my God, how are you going to finish your fellowship in Excel if you keep giving excuses that you're a mother and you cannot do this, or, you can step back, somebody else can do it. So
I'm sure our viewers can relate to that, Preeti.
Yeah.
We have several women who have to deal with this day in and day out,
Yeah.
especially during their, pregnancy days.
Yeah.
And
nobody ever
yes,
said to me anything directly. It's always a subtle message that is given, right? Are you sure you can do it? Are you sure you don't have to go back? And instead of trying to say that now I need help or I need to step back, I kind of push myself to a burning point. And that was not something I would recommend anybody doing it. And that's why I highly recommend women need to step out of their comfort zone and ask for help when they need it, and not feel guilty or feel small about asking for help when they need it. And that's why we have to have
Vatsala says,
comfort space and places where we can relate to each other and voice out our opinion without being judged. Now, fast forward, after they were 1 year old, there was a point where we had to take a decision on how to care for them best. And it was decided, my husband and I, both of us are in the same exact field. He got triple promoted, while I was told that, are you sure you can take care of the kids? So why don't you take a break? So no hard feelings, because I love that mentor of mine. He has been a lifesaver. So, but the point is, he had to make a decision which was best for him. So we decided to stay back home. And I did everything possible, trying to be the perfect mom, trying to be everything from therapist to everything I could while I was figuring out. And I was thinking I was giving up something for my kids and it'll make me a good person. I'll be happy. I'll be satisfied. It didn't. Those 5 years that I spent being at home, having no identity, being in a vacuum, literally banging against the walls, I would say was the worst time I've ever had in my life. That was the time where I kept thinking that every year I fall deeper into a pit. And I fell to the point that there was no other way to fall further, but just to climb up. And the only way we could do it is my husband and I decided he needs to quit what he is doing. I need to start something I need to do. And we both stepped together and we said, we have always been very good as a team. Let's do something together. And that's when we started our company, where the primary goal was to own our time and own our life. And that was the primary goal, where we could prioritize what we wanted to prioritize, do something we've been trained for 20 years, put together, and apply that, be passionate about it. And ever since that, life has been an upturn. I'm not saying we don't have challenges. But what I'm trying to make is, the way I was able to do it is, it's an equal partnership. I would call marriage, but I hate to call him a husband and he hates to call me a wife. We are truly partners.
That's a first for me, Preeti. I've never heard that.
We both are mothers to our kids. We both are fathers to our kids, whenever we need and whoever is available to do it. So when people say during pandemic, the biggest challenges people have had is to see how much of the invisible work that women do that goes unrecognized. And it puts so much of the burden on them to care for the elders, for the family, for the young ones. It's kind of eating their potential, eating their mental health, creating stress, because we are all of the generation where we were raised that you could be anything you want to. You can do anything you want to, literally, women with wings, right? And there you are, where you're said, like, you cannot do this because now you're a mother, now you're a wife, now you're something, now you're something. And each time you do it, but a part of you dies. And a part of you dies and you become something else that you don't recognize. And so my advice for people in pandemic is, it's doable if you think you can figure out what your priorities are and how to put it, and go for it, rather than, I want to work because I want to buy the designer collection. I would say, if you think pandemic has taught you, the most important thing is your health, your mental peace, your time, your ability to travel, ability to have a healthy, prosperous life. Fix your goal and go for it. It doesn't have to be what is being fed to you in terms of how you should be and what you should be. That's all.
Absolutely stunning story, Preeti. I can only say that you have come much stronger and much wiser out of that experience. And I fully agree with what you've said. It has to be partners. And in Australia,
Prachi, none of it was easy. None of it easy.
Oh,
I
it's
remember
never
5
easy.
years of being in tears and being this person who I never thought, I did not recognize myself. And like I said, when you fall so down, the only way is to climb up. And a lot of people in this pandemic find themselves in that spot where they feel like they have hit rock bottom. Guess what? The best part about hitting rock bottom is you just have to come up. You can't go down further.
Yeah.
You
And
make
I
it
think you
sound
touched
easy,
upon a
Preeti.
very sorry, Shikha.
No, please go
I
ahead.
just want to say, a very important topic that you've touched upon is mental health. And I think pandemic has been one of the biggest killer, but a biggest identifier of the mental health issues that you go through when you are in isolation. People are social beings.
I've been there.
Yeah. So, and I think all of us have been, and some of us identify it, that we have mental health issue, we have anxiety issue, and we take help. Whereas others, going back to Indian culture, or the culturally that was considered a stigma, to say, oh, why would you go to a psychologist? Are you going crazy?
Yeah.
But thank you for bringing that up. And I think that is very, very important, to take care of yourself. You cannot help others if you cannot help yourself.
Exactly.
So
and
you have
Prachi,
to be the number one priority.
Yeah. And
Well
Prachi,
said, Prachi.
can I add a point to what Prachi said?
Please go ahead.
In the past 4 years, out of my 7 immediate aunts, like my mother's sisters and my father's brothers' wives, I have lost 4 of my aunts in the past 5 years. And all of them, I've lost them in the ages of 60s and 70s. 2 died one died at the beginning of the pandemic, and one literally died this past Sunday. And what bothers me is these are women who had a career, who were highly educated when they were young. Their parents lived to be in their 90s and even touching 100. But these women had their life 20 to 30 years cut short because they developed comorbid conditions. They had high stress life. They had economic success. They had titles. They had positions. They had monetary everything. But I think they had so much stress in getting there that I think they lost 20 to 30 years of their productive life. And that's why I feel like prioritizing mental health for women in particular as they climb the leadership ladder is extremely important. I know what isolation can do to people. And this is what the pandemic should have taught us. So that's exactly what you guys are doing. You're giving us a platform to come and talk to each other.
Preeti, I'm so thankful you brought that up. I think it's one of the most pressing issues today, and most of our corporates are also working around it, trying to see what is it that they can do to build more well-being. And perhaps that could be one of the ways of bringing back the women workforce in a way. I sense the fact that you and I are perhaps privileged to even talk about it.
Yes.
Our mothers, our aunts didn't have that privilege. They didn't even know what that is. It would just, kind of make them dissolve their own identities somewhere and feel absolutely lost. And when they're at the rock bottom, it would have its own, consequences in terms of ailments, and eventually, what you mentioned, they would lose out on their lifespan, perhaps. It pains my heart when I think about it, what kind of struggles that they've gone through. At least we're at this phase where we're talking, we want to address it. All our participants, our viewers are pitching in, and they can resonate with what you just mentioned, Preeti. That once you hit the rock bottom, the only way is to climb up. That's so powerful. And at the same time, Vatsala also shared that there are corporates that are setting up camps and coaching sessions to kind of just arrest this mental health issue, because we know that the pandemic has grave effects on, everybody's well-being. Why just women? Every single individual's well-being is critical, and it's important to our, nation, by and large, to arrest this issue and take a note of it. Perhaps that way we could have better experiences that could draw out the women back from their homes, into the workforce again and contribute. Extremely critical. And thank you for, having such an insightful discussion. This re-entry may not be easy, that's for sure. Getting women back may be a little steeper climb for us, because there are a lot of changes coming in. There may be new career paths that are getting created, and that calls for certain amount of reskilling for women. That is something that women need to start preparing and gearing up for. So I'd like to ask Dia, what kind of leadership competencies do you think are critical during pandemic and post COVID era too?
Yeah, thank you. So, Preeti, that was, I have to say, a story of immense courage and fortitude. And I think it touched each of our hearts, the space where you came from. And I really want to build on this because, we all talk about the pandemic being a crisis. And as Prachi mentioned in the very beginning, that, this crisis is leading to a leadership crisis. But what exactly is a crisis? And more often than not, we talk of crisis as being catastrophic. So it's something that's really gone bad. So my life is in a crisis, my relationship is in a crisis, my business is in a crisis. Now, the word crisis actually comes from the Greek word crisis, which starts with a K. And what it means is a turning point in a disease where the actions of the patient or the doctor can actually lead to betterment or death. So, crisis is not catastrophic. It is, in fact, catalytic. It's a turning point. It's a moment of decision. It's a moment of poignant reflection. And it is like a crucible where you can emerge to be a new you. Now, as we saw in Preeti's story, as we saw in Shikha's story, at that moments of difficulty where when Preeti is feeling isolated, she's not feeling herself, or even the tadpole who's faced with the rock. Similarly, in our own tapestries of life, we have several rocks, and that crisis, what we do there depends, is actually going to determine how we emerge out of it. So, what's the growth that occurs, or what's the depletion that occurs during that crisis is very important. And I would actually take it a step further, and I would say it's not just women today, but it could be men, it could be our parents, it could be our children, it could be our domestic helps, who are all facing crisis in their own zone. And leadership is actually being very, very critical at this point. Now, if you're running a company, if you're running a entrepreneurial venture, there is a certain kind of thing that you're looking at in terms of outcomes. The first of it being that you want to protect your people. Now, even if you're a homemaker, you want to protect people. And because of everything that is happening around, people are now anchored, I would say, at Maslow's safety and security right now. And they want to
Bottom
first
left.
feel safe. Absolutely. They
Yeah.
want to first feel safe. And that is our primary role as leaders. Second is our ability to communicate effectively, where we may have to compromise on perfection, but we have to give precedence to focus and speed. And also, of course, maintaining the continuity of work. So this is what, as a leader, I am trying to do. Now, how do I do it? The first and the most important thing is building of trust. And building of trust is so critical at this point, because if you can build trust among your employees with your clients at this time, it is going to forge real long term relationships. And a huge way of building trust is being vulnerable. Now, often as a leader, we are under the myth that we have to have these Merlin like superpowers where we have to know everything. We cannot seek help. We need to have all the right answers. Now, as a leader, when you expose vulnerability, trust, and you go and tell people that you are also trying to figure out some things on your own and you don't have all the answers, that builds immense trust. When you provide the psychological safety to people to make mistakes and to learn from them, that builds a lot of trust. So, building trust is really, really important. The second thing is emotional intelligence. Now, again, we have been excessively biased in a society where it was all about goal accomplishment. But today, the focus on mental health, today, the focus on what is happening at the back of the facade is really putting a huge focus on emotional intelligence displayed by each of us. How
Yeah.
good are we at recognizing and managing our own emotions as well as those of others? And again, just picking up Fahmida's analogy that we are architects of values. So even as a mother, how much of importance are we providing to building emotional intelligence in our children? Now, when I
Hmm.
grew up, it was a norm in my house that you have to study for 2 hours every day. But nobody discussed that, what, you have to grow emotionally and you have to spend at least 15 minutes a day doing that every day. And that's the narrative we want to change because, emotional intelligence, and like I said, our tapestry of life is going to have many rocks. The pandemic is one of them, and it's going to, keep coming up. So a promotion we've been denied, a relationship that has failed, us being discriminated. So that's going to come up over and over again. So, what's the emotional intelligence I apply to managing my own as well as other people's emotions is really, really critical. So, I would say that's the second competency that I would really look at. And third is, as a leader, this is also a time where you should look at decentralized decision making because you cannot take all the decisions yourself. And I was just reading this report about,
Haven't
this.
we already seen that in our country? We've seen that in our nation for sure. Decentralization could have saved so much havoc that happened,
Absolutely, absolutely. So you specify the standards and then you
Yeah.
let people have the autonomy to make decisions. Otherwise, you'll be compromising on the speed. So I would say
Yeah.
these three really stand out for me in terms of leadership competencies required.
Brilliant. Yeah, I can't agree more. In fact, I also feel somehow because I've been in that space with leaderships, working on leadership competencies. I feel listening skills is quite underrated. And by all means, when you talk about emotional intelligence, I think
Yes,
one of the pillars or the bedrock of that is having the ability to do empathetic listening. And
absolutely.
and this is surveyed, researched, and proven that there's lack of empathetic listening at the CXO levels. That's the pretty big, unfortunate part of it, which is something that I think women are gifted with.
Yes,
So that again, kind of pegs women at a level where we can contribute at a different level. And Jacinda Ardern is a great example of, great demonstration of kindness, compassion, immense amount of strength and clarity that she's bringing into the country. I hear people say it's possible because the country's population is lesser, but I think what's also important is because the people out there have just the right attitude and behavior too, and that's what's bringing that kind of change in New Zealand, and bring that country at a certain level today in the global canvas. And I'd like to quote what Simon Sinek says. He says, "Great leaders don't give you something to do; they give you something to believe in." And that's what I think you were also talking about when you refer to trust and vulnerability there. So thank you for those brilliant
yes. And
insights.
Shikha, I just want to, bring in some actual behaviors when we talk about empathy, because again, a lot of people tend to confuse empathy with sympathy. And if I really bring in the
Please
COVID
clarify.
perspective, there are two mistakes that I often note people making, and I'll give one in a corporate scenario and one in a personal life.
Mhm.
Now, imagine you have a young child who's been homeschooling for over a year, and the child comes and tells you, Mom, I am so tired of online learning. I want to go and go back to school, meet my friends. I can't do this. Now, more often than not, we tell the child that, young man or young lady, you are so lucky. Your father and I are working so hard. You've got all the resources. Look at that, child in the village over there who doesn't have mobile network, and still they're doing. What are you doing? I mean, you can't even study. Now, what has happened there? We have actually minimized what has happened or what is going on in that child's mind. And the next time the child has a problem, he or she will go and eat chocolate, or they will play a video game, or they will talk to their friend, not to you, because they think that problem is not acknowledged by you. So that is a lack of empathy. Now, in the corporate space, imagine one of your team members in the morning tells you, you know what, I've woken up with a sore throat and I don't know if it is it COVID. And you say, no, no, I don't think so. What happened to the client request that I asked you to follow up on? So that's
Big
deflection.
one.
That's deflection. And, that person will feel not valued, not heard, not listened. So while we talk of empathy as a concept, we need to break it down into behaviors and see how we transpire it in our everyday life.
Well said. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I want to quickly ask Famida if there's anything that corporate space is kind of working on to leverage these leadership competencies that women are demonstrating. Your thoughts on that, Famida?
I think what Dia just stated was the absolute truth. Social emotional intelligence, trust, being able to empathize, attentive listening. Now, these kind of competencies are being spoken and spoken and spoken for many days during the last decade. But again, if you look at a particular interview, if you go into an interview when it's a leadership role, the first thing is that you ask is, are you planning to have any more kids? Are you going to ask the same question to a man? Well, a lady is supposed to have kids, right? And a woman is made for that purpose. All right, she's going to have kids. And as Preeti said, we are able to handle it. And it is not without belief that we have decided to have kids and come into the corporate sector. In that way, I think very less organizations, my direct answer would be very less organizations have actually harnessed the true potential of women candidates. Females need to be acknowledged more.
Yeah, there's huge scope there, like you said. We need to start, re-looking at it and perhaps redefine what women empowerment really stands for. And that brings me to Preeti very quickly. What is it that you would want to, state about revisiting or redefining women empowerment per se?
So a little bit of continuation from what Dia said. I'd like to start with that. Dia, I think you've, and both Famida also elaborated on that part. Again, I'll come with an example. During this pandemic, we ended up expanding our company and we hired a CEO. And I'm very proud of the fact that the whole thing was done remotely. But I'm even prouder of the fact that we got a candidate who was highly qualified and everything, but who was at home because he's just had a baby. He has just had a baby. He's a dad on paternity.
I want everyone to note he.
Yeah, he and his wife both decided, because the rules of Canada are such that, and I'm highly jealous of that fact, that you can take up to 18 months off when you have a baby. So we are able to accommodate the desires of a father to be around for his kid in those initial beautiful first year of bonding. And the fact that we have been able to give him a space that he is able to achieve his life's goal of being in a healthcare sector. He's a total technology person who's made a move. But more importantly, we are proud of the fact that, if he hasn't had sleep the previous night, we are like, okay, we take a day off, we meet tomorrow. We do things like that. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, it's sounding music to my ear. Yeah, you're getting a year to spend time with your child back home, and it's the same rule and norm for both men and women.
Exactly.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, so there's no judgment here, there is trust. And then of course the whole trusting thing, and I get to hear a lot of that, like, you need to let go of your science a bit and trust the business side and let us do the work. And we are like, but this company is our baby, we can't let go right now. So he's like, you need to trust. So it's a process. But here's what I would like to say about empowerment. First of all, where it comes from. It comes from the fourth way of feminism, which talked about women's empowerment, using of internet tools, and intersectionality of the different roles that we play. Nobody is just one singular role. We are based on our gender, our racial profile, our educational background, and so forth. So there's a lot of things. And one of the people I'm very inspired by in terms of her views is you all must be familiar with Simone de Beauvoir, whose book Second Sex was the reason for the second wave of feminism. And one of the things she said, and I'm going to quote her, that in order to have long, fulfilled, vital life, one has to invest in processes and projects that keeps one's abilities engaged. It allows people to have things to do on a daily basis, but at the same time works as a part of an entire society that is moving together. And along this way, build bonds of intimacy, which is intimacy of relationships between parents, between siblings, between co-workers, not in the same way, but I'm just saying friendships, bonding that allow ground up building of a society.
Yeah, I see that more as creating more value in the society, you know,
Yes.
having meaningful relationships,
Yes.
having camaraderie amongst us. And that's so powerful.
Yes.
I so love that, value addition that you just made, and how we need to kind of revisit at this women empowerment per se.
Yes.
What's your advice, if I can quickly ask Prachi, and then all of you can add in to all the women out here, because I'm sure everyone is intrigued with your rich experiences and exposure. And I love the example that Preeti shared right now. What kind of an advice can we give to our women today, in terms of the kind of life that they're dealing with, the immense amount of juggling, mental pressures, too much on their plate, both at work and at home? So very quickly, Prachi, what's your thought on that?
Thanks. I think, it's a good way to just pick up bits and pieces that each of the panelists have said, and I love being the catalyst. Use this opportunity and may it be the catalyst, what Dia said, right? That's why one of my greatest advice, I would say, the greater the risk, the greater the opportunity. I have some great example in the corporate world where women has been given positions because the market is tough. The external environment is difficult. The industries know whosoever comes into that position will fail. And women have been given those positions because they put their best candidate first, then they're setting them up for failure. Make that opportunity yours, and don't consider yourself to be a victim. Take that, own your destiny and ride on it. That is what I would say to everybody, because in this world, only the paranoid survives. If you want to be at the top, it is not going to be easy. If somebody told you it is going to be easy, they lied. Very honestly, if the men has to do 10 times, you have to do possibly 90 times more to be there. But that is what it is, right? Just stop being a victim. Know that what is. If you can be a mom, you can be a child, you can be a daughter, and you can raise your family, you can juggle your work. You can do this. If anybody can do, it is you. So take that, take this whole opportunity. And I think, this is where you can make that, because the change is constant. And we have learned that long back, right?
I love that. If anyone can do it, it is you. So that's
you,
for all
right?
our viewers here today. Dia, Preeti and Fahmida, would you like to quickly give your one-liner advices to all our women here?
Yeah, I just have one piece of advice that has emerged from a lot of women that I coach, and that is to be able to release yourself from the trap of comparison. So it's absolutely okay, whatever individual choices you're making, it doesn't have to compare with your colleagues, your batchmates, your siblings. And there is nothing wrong, there is nothing right. Somebody might find greatest joy in putting their 100% in their work. Somebody might find greatest joy in being a homemaker. Especially in a world today where everything is highlighted on social media, don't compare your reality with the highlighted reels of other people's work. Don't get under that pressure, especially during the pandemic. We are all stretched. We all have a lot on our plate. So you don't have to play to what other people are doing, and you don't have to measure up to anything. Your journey is individually brilliant. That's my only piece.
Super, super. Preeti and Famida, what you'd like to add, please?
Oh, should I start?
Well, I like to say, okay, Preeti, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Famida.
All right. So what I would like to say is stop expecting acknowledgement and appreciation to others. I think we need to acknowledge ourselves that we can do it. We wait till we are being called beautiful. We wait till we are being called intelligent. We wait till we are being told that we are smart enough to go and conquer the world out there. Now, for a moment, just go to the mirror, look at yourself, and say how beautiful you are, and that you're great, and that you'll do just fine in your life. And I'm sure that self-belief is going to take you miles than waiting for others to kickstart your journey for you. So be and make the change you wish to see in the world.
Yeah, it's like, Sritija says, you can't really please everyone and make everyone happy and satisfied. You're not mutton curry at the end of the day. So don't expect that from yourself. Preeti, your thoughts, please.
So, you can see that how illustrious this panel is, like all my fellow panelists are, because what they have said is something that is based already in historical truth, which is, again, quoting Simone de Beauvoir, one is not born a woman, but rather they become one. And this is not in a positive way, this is in a negative way, that a woman really doesn't know who she is because she has to live and abide by all the rules that are made for her in terms of culture, religion, her body it is kind of being restricted by so many things.
Picture perfect.
My advice,
Fit in.
Yeah, everything. Like the culture wants you to be like this, the social setup wants you to be like this, the political setup wants you to be like this. My thing, which every day I'm working towards, I'm not there, I've not done it, is to break free of that and become your own personhood. Be who you are destined to be, rather than what you're expected constantly or molded positively or negatively by everything around you, by your history, by your culture, by your society, by your profession, everything. Find out who you are.
Anjali says
that.
Anjali from our participants, she's kind of adding in that self-love is in the air, and that's the flavor of the day, it appears. We have all our participants pitching in, every now and then. Thank you for all your comments, viewers. I have this super write-up from Neetu Mathur, one of our authors and poetess from Women with Wings. So I'd want to share this with all of you. Nari Sashakt thi. Famida, I'm sorry, this is in Hindi. नारी सशक्त थी और सदा रहेगी, ये आज की बाला है, ना झुकी थी ना झुकेगी. परिवार हो या समाज, इसने सहज ही संभाला है. हर कार्य दक्षता से पूर्ण किया, ये खुद की सरबाला है. हर पग प्रगति करता, खोलता नई राह है. देश हरदम आगे बढ़े, यही इसकी चाह है. देश हरदम आगे बढ़े, यही इसकी चाह है. On that note, I want to open the floor for all questions and answers. Thank you, Neetu, for this brilliant rendition. Any questions? Do you think happiness is important for human-centric leadership? Nidhi's asking. Who'd like to take that question, please?
I'll just picking up from what Preeti said, and self-care, what we were talking of. Yes, self-care or being it's human-centric is leadership definitely coming from, if you cannot be your authentic self, you cannot be anything.
Exactly.
You cannot make your family happy, you cannot make yourself happy, you cannot make your work happy. So just be your authentic self, and that is the center of everything. And wear yourself with pride, right? You don't have to be anything else, and that will lead, you will pave the way of everything that you want to be. I remember one of the memes that we saw during the time of pandemic, a glass of wine and sitting in a bathtub. If anyone, I thought that's brilliant. Everybody can keep shouting, but we can just sit with a glass of wine in a bathtub, and that's all what we need for a self-care. That'll do the job.
Apparently Prati memes only reminds me of two things. One, there's this famous one, ये मेरा ग्लास है, ये मेरा सेशन चल रहा है, ये आप सब है और ये हमारा सेशन चल रहा है. ये पार्टी हो रही है.
Yeah, but it's a good question.
That became very popular. So I think these are the two memes that I get reminded of. Any other questions from the audience? Let's quickly have a couple of more for our panelists to address. What's your life mantra for success? Who'd like to take that question? Anjali is asking, what is your life's mantra for success? Dia, would you like to address?
Sure. I think my life mantra for success is always stepping out of my comfort zone. So whenever I feel like this is really easy, I think it's time for me to move to new challenges, and that's my process of growth.
Wow, wonderful. And now Neetu is asking, do you think only handful women want to hold significant positions, as we feel leadership positions are very, very demanding? Do you think women don't choose to be there? I think
I
yes.
like to take that because I also work as an adjunct faculty with SP Jain School of Management.
Okay.
And in my conversations, whenever I get into class, and let's say there are an equal number of students who are men and women, and they are bright minds, so they've been there to do their MBA. Now, whenever I'm doing an activity or a group discussion, and I say, who wants to be a leader? I do not see as many women nominating themselves as I see the men nominating themselves. So certainly, I think somewhere still ingrained in our mind in the new generation is the social role, where we look upon ourselves as followers, as somebody who will not speak up, even though I know I'm capable, but I will not put up my hand for a leadership position. And we also see, immense evidence of this in the workplace.
Yeah.
So, we need to work on our social roles. We need to work on the narratives. We need to think about what are the stories we read to our kids as fairy tales. Is it all about, the women being rescued by princes, or they're always in trouble and, they live happily ever after when they get married to somebody of their choice? So I know there's a change in trend, but it has to again be more pronounced, and it has to be ingrained in our psyche. Because today it is not about, my brother having more access to education or getting better food or not helping with chores. I think we've moved from there. But now we need to work at a deeper psychological level where girls feel confident, women feel confident of nominating themselves. Because if they don't nominate for themselves, there's always somebody else ready to step in.
True. Well said. Lovely. I think Preeti wants to add.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. So I have a 17-year-old, and by all means, he is, Gen Z. So he is a very, very highly accomplished academician already. So he operates at a zone where most of his competition is 50% girls and 50% boys. So once I asked him a question, and I'm definitely raising a feminist, I know that for sure. But so once I asked him, when you see a girl classmate, what do you see? So when you have boys and girls and classmates, what do you see? He'll be like, classmates. When you see a girl on your team, who is there, what do you see? He'll be like, greater competition for me to live up to.
Wow. Love
So,
that.
and it is just something that it's not made up. It's the next generation who has taken it for granted
Yeah.
that these are women whose abilities I'm not going to question, whose capabilities I'm not going to question, and I'm going to see if they're better than me, how I can match up to them, if I can work with them, how I can work with them, and work along as a team rather than, the gender factor doesn't come in at all.
Brilliant. Vatsala says one has to ensure that we are irreplaceable. People just wait for that blink of eye when you make a mistake. So I think it's important that we kind of stand up to ourselves and never hesitate. Meetu says, doesn't sensation of men will also become a catalyst to improve these statistics? I think she means sensitization.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that I see in the corporate world, today many businesses and industries and countries are realizing that women in leadership is not only bring important benefits, but they are also irreplaceable in office, in the boardroom, and at the head of the table. And that we're just talking of the corporate, and but more and more requirement to have them in decision making, and that's because they have different perspective, diversity of thought, and they actually help achieve the businesses a better financial outcome. There is lots of studies about how they are better mentors, so definitely they're better leaders. So you will see that, and if you actually try and put yourself out there, not if you do not put yourself out there, then also you will be asked to. It doesn't get unnoticed somewhere.
And love what Anjali has just shared on the point that we are talking about. She says Rapunzel in this new scenario will opt for weaving out a rope rather than waiting for that prince to come and rescue her. So isn't that brilliant, Dia, with reference to the story sharing that you were just talking about? Vatsila says women need to ensure that they exhibit same traits as they want the next generation to have or demonstrate. Thanks, Vatsila. Thank you, Meetu, Anjali, and all the other viewers and participants who are pitching in and sharing your views and asking all the questions. I think it's time to have a little fun now with our esteemed panelists here. And we'll jump right in by asking Preeti, what's the craziest thing you've done recently? Or ever?
Recently?
Like, craziest thing that you've done?
Well, again, okay, because I'm so much into fairy tales, thanks to Dia, I married for love, which I never thought I would be doing. So I always thought, first I never thought I'll get married. Then I always thought maybe arranged marriage. But when I married for love, and at that time we both were students, and we were like, are we sure we know what you're doing? So yeah, that's the craziest thing, and I'm living by it, and it's worth it.
Super. Okay. So would you rather wear a pair of pants or pajamas with a formal top? And that question goes to Dia.
Yes, pajamas for a virtual call, right?
Absolutely.
Always.
In this current scenario.
Take the benefit of what this offers.
Wonderful. Prachi, what's your most embarrassing moment till date?
Many, but I think, what comes to top of my mind is, I went for my 40th, telling my age there, for a skydiving, or my husband took me there. And I literally refused to jump off the plane. I thought, in spite of all that arrangement and planning, I was pushed out of the plane at that moment. So that, I think, was pretty embarrassing for the age that we have come through. Not to forget, I'm still a little girl at heart. So
we all are, aren't we? We just kind of learn how to act in public, I guess. We're all children at heart.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So, okay, Fahmida, if you could switch lives with someone, who would that be?
None. Loving mine.
Wow.
Loving mine.
So I'm my own favorite, that's my favorite gesture for every single woman out there. You should do that one hug to yourself every day in the morning, looking into the mirror. Okay, so 3 unique things that we can find in your handbag, if I can ask that question from Dia.
Unique.
3 unique things. I think I don't know. Would somebody
Or
else
let's
like
just
to
say
take?
3 things we are going to bound to find. 3 things that
Yeah.
we're bound to find. Let's just talk
Okay,
about.
so it'll be a pen, lipstick, which is not used now because we're all wearing masks, and a comb. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Anyone else who thinks they have some unique things in their bags that they'd like to share quickly?
I'll have a lot of chew toys and sensory toys for my kids wherever I go. So I'll have
Okay,
a whole bunch of range of chew toys, fidget cubes, which I don't think.
Understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I always
understandable.
have
All
a
right.
bottle of water. I always have a bottle of water. I don't know
Me
whether
too.
that's unique or not.
That makes us a fish.
Possibly.
So, okay. Your phrase or some kind of takya kalam, if there is a favorite dialogue, perhaps, Prachi, if you'd like to answer that.
I'll say this in Hindi. Sorry for Bida. उसने क्या कद्दू में तीर मारा है. So ये तो कोई भी कर सकता है. So I say कद्दू में तीर. So a lot of people would hear, and of course,
What's the big deal? That's for everyone out there. What's the big deal? There's nothing big about whatever you've achieved so far. So that's a good one. I think one of my favorites is एक बार commitment कर दी तो मैं अपनी खुद की भी नहीं सुनती.
That's Sallu fan, right?
That's Sallu, yeah. I'm not a Sallu fan though. Okay, Preeti, if you were a superhero or a woman, what superpower would you like to have and what would you like to do with it?
Superpowers. I don't believe in superheroes. I don't. I just don't like the concept of I'm, however, very inspired by normal people, normal everyday people who do extraordinary things when they're put through, like when you go through the ringer and how you emerge out of it, and very normal people, like off the top of my head, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Harriet Tubman, Senator Elizabeth Warren, just normal people, how they went through the thing. So, and if I could adapt some of their superhero powers, like again, I'm saying that would be
the real life superheroes.
Yeah, the ability to transform when put under pressure. Yeah.
Wonderful. Dia wants to add, I guess. Yes.
Yeah,
please.
I think I would definitely choose flying because I can avoid all the traffic and I can avoid all the PCR tests and just move from one place to the other. So yes, flying.
Yeah, I would choose to be Mr. India maybe and tap and annoy all these people who've been mean to me. So, okay, Famida.
Possibly, I was thinking of that tough question that Preeti got put, and I was thinking possibly that vampire from Twilight Saga who could read everybody's mind.
Be a mentalist. Okay, so Famida, is there anything that you've done for the first time during this pandemic, especially?
Actually, it was only during pandemic that I became a host and a moderator. Being encouraged by a few of my friends who are from India. I was like, host, moderator, me? Are you crazy? Do you think I can talk? They're like, just do it and see the feedback. So it started last September, and here I am. Hosted, moderated, I think more than 25, 30 events.
You have good friends, Famida. You have good friends who can see what you have, even when you are not being able to see that.
Yeah, that's what great friends do. They kind of lead you to becoming something more, isn't it? We've had a fantastic discussion, guys. All this, all the panelists are brilliant souls and individuals, and such, invigorating discussion we've had today. I'm sure all our viewers have gained something from our discussion. Any closing note from all of you before we, get going on this? One closing note from all of you.
I would say keep the
Your
conversation
learning,
going.
your takeaway from our
Mine
discussion.
would be to keep the conversation going. Start comfortable and uncomfortable conversations wherever you are, even if it is not called for, and see how you can own the space rather than walking away from the space and leaving
Wow.
blank ground, because the world needs your input and you're worth it.
Being comfortable with being uncomfortable, like Raj Gupta says. Love that, Preeti. Okay. Next, Dia, Famida, anyone? Prachi, would
Okay.
like to add?
I'm always ready to add, right? I think, biggest takeaway from me, for me in this session, or possibly coming into this session, I was thinking, it's not the strongest or the most intelligent who will survive, but those
Yeah.
who can best manage a change will be the one who will come out as survivors. So it's just the pace of change, and then in this VUCA word, if you can adapt to all the uncertainty and the volatility, then you will be the so you've learned a lot. Each one of the women has learned a lot out of it. So that's my take.
True.
Thank
Adapt.
you.
Bingo. Thanks. Famida.
Yes, I would say that today we've spoken immensely and on a profound note about women and women leadership. I think it's time that we understand that true success only means when we embrace the entire ecosystem. So together, women and men should embrace each other, complement on each other, inspire each other, learn from each other, and move towards success. I think that is what we were meant for, isn't it? As men and women, we were blessed life onto this virgin earth to magnify its glory, and through our physical and intellectual bond to spread love and life. So let's do that.
Totally. We're all differently coded, and our programs would help, make this earth flourish in the most beautiful way. And that's what it's meant to be. Very true. So more like individuals than as men or women per se. Dia, what would you like to add as your closing note and takeaway from the session?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Preeti. These conversations are really important. And I think that's one of the benefits, that's one of the blessings of this increasingly virtual world. We can connect across the globe. We can see reflection of our own stories in other people's stories, and know that, there are other people who've gone through the same thing. And this gives us courage to move ahead. So I've truly enjoyed being here, and I hope that our viewers have taken away something from here.
Totally. Thank you so much. We've definitely had a fantastic discussion, a lot of insights, and amazing takeaways. Like, crisis is just about a turning point for us. It can act as a catalyst for either growth or for depletion and regression in your life. So, choice is ours to make. When you hit the rock bottom, there's only one thing you can do. Like Preeti said, you can only climb up. Mental health is critical, and that's one thing that Famida also mentioned when you spoke about being architects of values and humanity as women, and start to embrace each other as individuals and partners, like it was illustrated during the discussion. I think Prachi also mentioned that mental health, self-love becomes critical in these times, and all of us, at the end of the day, that's the flavor of the day in a way, to never ever forego yourselves. I think our authentic lives, being just the way you are, in a way, becomes the new essence of women empowerment, if I may say. I'd want to leave our viewers with certain thoughts. Do you think that being authentic, ensuring well-being of every single person, and uplifting every individual around us is the real empowerment that we're looking for, where all of us can coexist and all of us can flourish? Are you doing your bit to create that kind of future? Are you stepping it up? Are you using this crisis as a catalyst? We have lots and lots more that we will get talking on these international roundtable conferences. We have a long way to go, and several other discussions that we would want to bring on the table, where all of you would start stand a chance to kind of get more aware and acclimatized to these issues and have an opportunity to voice it too. So thank you so very much for all your time and all the brilliant insights. And thank you to all our viewers for tuning in today. We hope to see you guys every time we have a discussion lined up with Women with Wings, who's doing a brilliant work to get dreams soaring for every single individual across the globe, because every woman counts. That's all from our side. You have a brilliant day. Thank you for tuning in. Ciao, everyone.